Well, James, looks like it's just you and I. We have lost everyone.
Yes, good morning, everyone on
Wait a minute,
Facebook.
she may be coming in now.
Oh, okay.
Good morning, lady. How are you?
Good morning. And Leah, are you on Facebook?
I should be. I'm looking now.
Okay, I just want to, if you're on Facebook, just wanted to let everybody know that's watching on Facebook. We had a little technical difficulties here, but we do have our guests on.
We lost the colonel.
Lost the colonel in the radio feed. So hopefully they can get back in.
I
Don't
think
know
colonel's
what happened
coming on.
there. But anyway, for those watching on Facebook Live, good morning. Thank you. And all right, are we still there? Okay, those watching on Facebook Live, we're still there every day. We rise. It's a great day to be alive. And welcome to the Seven Cities Forums of Hampton Roads presents Portsmouth Coffee Talk with our hosts, Leah Drake Stitt, Thomas the Colonel Chapman, and yours truly, James Slim Overton. And
good morning,
everybody, as we wait for the feed to come back on the radio, but we will continue, and hopefully the Colonel and the radio station can get that going. But we do have our guests.
And,
do we have
Chapman Colonel's back on as well.
Okay. All right, I don't see our guest on the live feed. Is she still there?
She's there.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
You can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Great job. It's been a task this morning.
We've worked the full day already, right?
Already, that's for sure.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
Once in a while, we hit these glitches, especially on Monday mornings. You know how Monday mornings can be. But anyway, welcome everybody. And we have a special guest with us this morning, Ms. Sheri
Bailey. Sheri Bailey.
Is here with us today, and we're going to talk about Juneteenth. Of course, it was a national holiday last Monday, and we had a scheduled guest for that. So, and she was out of town, I think, or we're going out of town. So, but we have her here, and it's not a holiday that we just celebrate on one day all year round. And we wanted to bring Ms. Bailey on because she has been a champion for the June 10th or June 19th since like 1997, you know, and I can remember, I think when I heard her talking about it was the first time I really heard about it or was aware of it. And of course, she went to IC Northam, and I don't remember hearing it from Miss Jones or Mr. Pittman. But, you know, one of those things, it was a concentration in Texas, so maybe why it didn't get to us. And even at Virginia Union, I don't remember majoring in history and government. I don't remember hearing about Juneteenth in the early 70s, or maybe I missed that class that day. Maybe I overslept and missed that class. I don't think it was out there. It was something that was widely known outside of Texas, because Texas has been celebrating it for a long time. And I want to start off by asking you, Sheri, when did you become aware of it? And what was your motivation to start, you know, trying to make people aware of it and spread the word, especially here in Virginia and the Hampton Roads and Portsmouth area?
Well, I heard about it in California. I lived in LA for about a dozen years. And one day, my husband and I were walking through a neighborhood and came upon this festival that turned out to be Juneteenth. And that was my first time hearing about it, you know, and I was like, well, what is Juneteenth? And someone explained that it talked about how slavery ended in America, June 19th being that date that the federal troops got to Galveston, Texas, and spread, with the news that slavery had been abolished. And that had started really, that spreading of the news started on April 9th, 1865. That's when Robert E. Lee surrendered to Grant at Appomattox, which ended the Civil War, technically anyway. And at that point, federal troops fanned out across the country, spreading the news that slavery was abolished and that Lincoln was assassinated. And wherever they went to deliver this news, there would be a celebration in that locality. Victory Day, Freedom Day, Independence Day. They get to Galveston on June 19th, and because of the date on the calendar, that celebration became known as Juneteenth. Not that right away, but ultimately, all of these celebrations were being held annually, but Juneteenth kind of caught on because in 1866, on June 14th, 1866, in Oklahoma, you had the 5 tribes, civilized tribes, Indian tribes that also renounced slavery, and that because of the date on the calendar, again, June 14th, Juneteenth became the name of that celebration. So it was an evolution in terms of the term Juneteenth. And now Juneteenth is the kind of generic term meaning to celebrate the end of slavery in America. And the way that it kind of got to Virginia is that once I decided to leave Los Angeles, my daughter was about to start school. Her father and I had separated, and I had to make that decision about whether or not I was going to stay in LA and be a single parent or come back home to Virginia and have family support to raise my child. And so I made that decision very fearfully, because I was like, what am I going to do in Virginia? And I got back home and got involved in some research about Nat Turner, and realized that so much of the history that pertains to how slavery started and ended in America is our local Tidewater, Hampton Roads history. Mm-hmm. And that became the bridge between, what was I going to do in Virginia? It became doing the research about this history and creating plays that help us talk about this difficult history in ways that are healing. Once you are able to talk about this history, it seems to make people less defensive and more able to listen carefully. We're using theater as a tool to be able to start the conversations.
And it's quite interesting, Galveston, Texas, where it was. And the only time I Galveston, I might date myself, but this country singer, Glenn Campbell, had a song.
Galveston.
And when I heard that, I said, okay, I heard that somewhere before. But what was interesting about that, when they sent troops down there, Union troops down there, and I saw somebody say on a video, they didn't go down there to inform, they went down there to enforce the slave owners. And what was also interesting about it, with all the soldiers they had, most of them were Black soldiers.
Yes.
Black soldiers. I think they said something like out of 6,000 soldiers, or maybe 8,000, 4,000 of them was Black soldiers.
United States colored troops, and then that is the story that also never gets told, or it needs to be told more. Right. Starting with the surrender, Lee's surrender on April 9th, 1865, that picture is always presented as being a very somber occasion. But what they don't include is the fact that there were over 3,000 Black soldiers in the battlefield theater celebrating. This was not a sad end. This was a celebration of a victory. And this is how the truth has been prevented from seeing the light, because it's been told, the history has been told from the perspective of the losers of the Civil War. So of course you're going to get Lee looking sad on the day of the surrender, but they need to put the camera on those gentlemen, the men who were in the battlefield, celebrating that. And same thing in Galveston. Those U.S. colored troops came through, and they were dressed in their finest dress blues, and they were marching, stepping high. And it was a celebration, and that never gets told. In terms of, the way the history has happened, Juneteenth VA, our goal is to reframe that history in ways that talk about it from a perspective that is, from our perspective. We were the winners of that war, and of the Civil War at the very least, but there was a much bigger war that we were fighting. I really don't look at the Civil War as, the turning point. I look at the war against slavery, which starts in 1831 with the Nat Turner insurrection,
Right.
and goes over 40 years to 1877 at the end of Reconstruction, such as it was. Then that is when federal troops were pulled from the South, and which allowed the rise of the KKK and Jim Crow in 1877. So the war against slavery, WAS, 1831 to 1877, and then you fill in incidents along that timeline, such as the 1857 Dred Scott decision, which basically said that Black folks were born enslaved, would live as slaves, and die as slaves. And so, as we know, with the U.S. Supreme Court decisions, and they are continuing to be very, very, very powerful influences on who we are and how we live our lives. So the war against slavery, and our goal is to have people help us fill in that timeline, because the incidents, are numerous in terms of like how slavery continues to be a legacy in our modern day world. And so we need to understand that past so we can better deal with it here in the present.
It's so important for us to, I'm glad we have a holiday. And again, thank you for all your work in trying to inform us. We're not trying to inform us, but informing us about this way before the holiday came. We were celebrating June 19th, as it was called then, Juneteenth now. And it's so important that this information gets out to people and people spread the word, especially now when they're trying to lump everything into the critical race. And we're trying to protect people from being insulted or, harmed by true history, American history.
Right.
So I'm glad we have you here to further tell us about some of the things around there and how it came here and how it's been celebrated all over the world. As a matter of fact, not only here, but it's celebrated in other countries. And now we're celebrating that. And there's still some states that are resisting, making that a holiday.
Yeah, well, they can't, they can certainly not celebrate it or not put resources into it, but there are Juneteenth chapters all around the country. And I would dare say that there's a Juneteenth, outfit in all 50 states and a couple of the territories. And now that we are a national holiday, federal holiday, that's going to allow us to be able to network much, stronger than we were able to. Although the National Juneteenth Observation Foundation, which was founded by Dr. Ronald V. Myers, who has passed, he was just unstoppable. And for over 20 years, he was driving up and down the roads, getting proclamations and resolutions in over 44 states, before he passed. So he and Miss Opal Lee were some of the founding members of, of the Juneteenth movement. And Ms. Opal Lee, of course, was there with President Biden when the legislation was signed into law. And she is now, just this last week, there was a big CNN concert. Did you guys see that? It was Ms. Opal was right there in the mix there. And so it's been really a wonderful experience in terms of, the whole process of the federal law, because it was, over 20 something years of pushing for it. And then in 72 hours, it happened. It was just kind of like, we had whiplash trying to get, that all together. And a funny thing happened to me. the law was passed, signed on that the Wednesday, the 17th. And I had ordered a flag from the national organization, a Juneteenth flag. And so I missed it on that Thursday. They left me a note saying, come pick it up at the post office. So I go in there on that Friday and the post office was closed for the Juneteenth festival.
Juneteenth festival.
Holiday. I was like, hello. So I don't know if they've got the signs up yet, but Juneteenth will be in calendars and listed as a paid federal holiday, and it was just really gratifying to see banks and other
Yes.
businesses observing that, and we were in DC for the National Juneteenth Parade, which we did from the African American Civil War Museum to the campus of Howard University. So celebrating Juneteenth, it has been, important in terms of educating people. That is the biggest goal that all of the Juneteenth chapters share. But of course, it's about celebrating and having, fun and all of that kind of good stuff. But it can't just be that. It has to always be partnered with education. And the theater tool that I use is the way, that it works best for what we are doing here in Virginia. And Virginia, because we have so much unique history, particularly we have Fort Monroe, which was the location of two of the most important, episodes in American history, which include the 1619 arrival of those Africans from Angola, who came ashore at Old Point Comfort, which is where Fort Monroe is located today. And then on the other end, you have the 1861 contraband escape, which you had 3 enslaved men who escaped from their owner and made their way to Fort Monroe, where they asked for asylum. That's not the word they used, but that's what they were looking for. And when their owner came to collect his property, he was denied their return under a federal policy known as contraband of war, which allowed for property of the enemy to be confiscated. The Union general there, Benjamin Butler, put these 3 men, Frank Baker, James Townsend, and Shepard Mallory, on the federal payroll, and which essentially put them on the path to citizenship. And within days, you had that was May 23rd. By June 8th, you had hundreds of people showing up looking for their path to citizenship. Fort Monroe became known as Freedom Fortress Monroe. And they had over 10,000 people living there in the contraband camp city by the end of the Civil War in 1865. So these two bookends of history at Fort Monroe have come, joined together to help, for Juneteenth VA to, we're reaching out for, we would like to see a think tank at Fort Monroe, a venue where we discuss racial issues and develop anti-racist policies, because so much of what happens and dominates the headlines for a few days, and then it slips through the cracks and we don't deal with it anymore. So we need a think tank. We need a place where these issues don't get, dropped, and that we actually are working actively to create policies that will counteract what their effects are. So that makes Fort Monroe extremely important in terms of moving forward.
Before you go, we are on the radio, and I hope I see that we do look like the Colonel is here. We can't see him. Colonel, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm listening.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Just wanted to make sure.
So originally, I did give the disclaimer. I've already done that. And then the other piece to that is that for those who else out there is listening, we need your help. And I'd like to put a plea out there, or an ask that if you like what you're seeing and hearing, send a donation or honorarium to P.O. Box 7664, Portsmouth, Virginia 23707, to Portsmouth Coffee Talk, so we can continue this work. Well, go ahead on.
James, are you about to say something, James?
No, I also add that we have a Cash App, PCT 1220, $, PCT 1220. or you can do on your Zelle account, Portsmouth Coffee Talk at yahoo.com. Leah, go ahead if you have.
Yeah, Sheri, you know, I am just so blessed to have crossed our path. My Sankofa youth participated with you back in 1997.
Wow.
So it's so interesting when they did start the celebration on this year. Many of my children who were younger then, of course, they're older young folks now, but they said, oh, their children are now part of Sankofa. And the children were saying, Miss Steph, we've been celebrating this all along. How come nobody knew about it? You know? So my Sankofa group, because of you, we were celebrating Juneteenth since 1997. And we are grateful to you for that. And one interesting thing, my son, on the morning of June 19th, he rode through the neighborhood. He said, what in the world is going on? I've just never seen these people out here celebrating Juneteenth. And so I went about and I was asking some people, well, what are you celebrating? You know, they say it's a holiday, but what holiday is it? Do you know what you're celebrating? And all they knew it was a holiday. So It's important that we know the reasons why we celebrate when we're celebrating, you know, not just to put the signs up and not just to, you know, wear your African garb, but to know what it is you're celebrating. And for that, I am so thankful to you that you started us on this journey a long time ago.
I thank you so much for your support and all that you do. You inspire me with what you do. And that is what Juneteenth is hopeful to do, is to help people understand how important and how strong our people have been over the years. There's this belief that we were passively waiting to be free. And that was not the case at all. We were active and very, very successful in many ways of being able to get to where we are today. And where we are today is that we're still dealing with the legacy of it all.
Exactly.
And so you having those children there, and then their children being, informed, that just warms my heart, because that is the goal, is to make sure that folks understand that we come from a strong lineage of people, and we have done important, wonderful things. The plays are very wonderful in terms of being able to spread that information. We tell the story of James Armstead Lafayette, who was an enslaved man in Portsmouth, who was employed to spy on Cornwallis at Yorktown, and provided great information to George Washington for the Revolutionary War, the Battle of Yorktown. That history is our local history, that we should have children walking that. How did James Armstead get from Portsmouth to Yorktown? What route did he take? Why can't we do field trips and make sure that our children, who are, this is their history, know it, and then they become the ambassadors and the docents and the narrators to those people who come into the region looking to know about this history, because everyone wants to know about this. Is where the nation we are today in 2022 started here in Tidewater, Hampton Roads. This is our local history, but it is national history. And if we are, not careful as the stewards of this history, then we have no one to blame but ourselves.
Sheri, you are so right. And the fact of the reasons why we need to know our history was just recently demonstrated when Virginia Department of Transportation was talking about building a road through Hampton University, which would have removed Emancipation Oak from Hampton University, and that's where we were informed. That's where the Virginians were informed of that they had been emancipated. But if you didn't know that history, then the Department of Highway would have come through and they would have taken Emancipation Oak down,
Right. Yeah, exactly. This area is a major stop on the Underground Railroad because of the waterways. Now, just like you see the Civil War trails signs all over the place, we should also be seeing Underground Railroad trail signs all over the place, because this was they came this way from Richmond, which was a second largest slave auction block in the nation. So they knew that if they went through Richmond further south, that lessened their chances of getting freedom. So Richmond was a major jumping off point, and they came in this direction toward us in the Great Dismal Swamp, looking for routes to get them up north. And no one knows this history, So this is incredibly important that people understand that we are have a responsibility as well as an incredible opportunity in terms of being able to use this history as a tool that we can educate and inform folks. So I really appreciate being up here today. I know you have folks in your audience who are very, very concerned about these issues, and I encourage them to please be in touch with Juneteenth. Our website is juneteenthva.org. And if you have interest in being a part of what we do, then you are welcome, particularly if you're interested in doing theater. What we are looking to do is the Portsmouth Theater Academy, PTA, will teach folks how to be historical reenactors like you find in Jamestown and Williamsburg, as well as actors on a Broadway stage. These are two different skill sets. They're very similar in a lot of ways, and they're very different in a lot of ways. So once folks are, trained through PTA, again, they become, they become like our ambassadors to the tourists who come to this area looking for, to understand the American history that talks about the birthplace of America. They have to come here in order to get it. And that history doesn't recognize any boundaries of cities, towns, or counties. It happened here in this region. And so I see it as being a unifier in a region that has had difficulty being able to do that. And that is why in the beginning of doing Juneteenth, I would move around the different cities in the region, wanting to be that kind of unifier in terms along with this history. And that proved to be difficult on the reason in terms of building audience loyalty, because people were not sure where it was going to be each year. And that made it difficult for them to plan it in their schedule in the way that it would have been, bigger crowds and so forth like that. So there are, were choices made that, I look back over these 25 years and go, but you hung in there, girlfriend. So I'm going to pat myself on the back and call it a day.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Let me jump in for a second. We're approaching 7 o'clock where we leave the radio station, but we continue on Facebook Live. So I just wanted to thank all the listeners on WGPL 1350 AM for listening. And I want to let everybody know, please support your Black media, especially CBC, Christian Broadcasting Company. And make sure as you support your Black media, you support continuation of the knowledge of Black history, the Black locally and throughout the United States. It's important that we don't let people control what we learn in our schools just because people fearful of that information getting out there. So thank you again for listening, and please join us next Monday at 6:30 a.m. So Sheri or the Colonel, I don't know, we can't see you, but we can hear your voice, which is just as important. So if you have a question or comment you like.
Yeah, well, before everybody got on, I made a reference to the Roe versus Wade comment, and I'm going to tie that all in this one diatribe that I get off my chest now. One, our guest talked about the ending of slavery with Juneteenth. I surmise that the act of slavery really never ended. It was almost in greater context. We had a like in the Korean War, we have an armistice, because the same forces that tried to inflict or to continue with slavery are alive and well today. With the passage with this Supreme Court that was installed by the Republican Party, or I call the Confederates, they have opened the divide in America that we have two Americas. We have one America where you are free for women to have control over your bodies. And the other half where you're not free is where they have the anti-abortionists. And so we've got that political divide. If you look at, this is the political divide that is destroying our country. And the Confederates want to divide our country. And then so what reason I say that is, you know, if you just really look back at it and say, you know, we celebrate Juneteenth, but we are free but not free. And if I look at over the weekend where you had the twice impeached, disgraced traitor, Mr. Trump, was celebrating at one of his rallies with a representative, Mary Miller, that in the middle of this rally says, Mr. Trump, you save white life. Tells you everything. That Mr. Trump is the new Grand Poobah of the KKK in America. And so yes, we can celebrate Juneteenth, but we have to put it into action to keep our freedoms, because our freedoms are still at risk because the Civil War never ended.
Right.
In minds. It never ended. And it was an armistice. And now they have come up with the when Mr. Trump was installed by Putin and the white right, and he got 4 years, the damage to our country really turned us back, and they want to turn us back to maybe the 1950s. And then so one of the big things with that, in the debates on the abortion issue, 60% of the abortions are done by white women. And so with that, you see the replacement theory. And that's why they were afraid, because with the growing demographics of Black and brown people, they were afraid that they were going to be in the minority. We could celebrate, yes, this now at the edges, but you look at all of the Supreme Court, and they've done this through the court system over a span of 50 years. And everything is to slow us down, to put us back into those slavery days. And then so you see the connection here of what I just said.
Yeah, Colonel, what a great opportunity for you to tie your modern day Confederates to the original Confederates.
Yes.
What a great opportunity for you. You know how
Yes, I just had to get that off my chest.
Yeah,
but it's hitting each and every one of us.
And
yes,
back to
you're
Sheri.
so right. You're so
James,
right.
we can't hear you, James. What you say?
No, I was just saying he was so right. His
Yeah,
commentary was
yeah.
dead on, and he got a chance to connect his Confederates with the original Confederates.
Yes. But
Yes.
Sheri, getting back to you.
We shouldn't, yes, we should celebrate, but it actually is a call to action, because the war never ended. We look at, you mentioned CRT. That is part of wiping out the history of Juneteenth. They don't want to discuss that.
Right.
Because if you've forgotten your history, or you don't know your history, what you've talked about, then they can get away with murder, which they are with every day. And so I'll leave it up to, I'll go from there.
Yeah, Sheri, I just want to ask you that in that vein, how will we still have good momentum here in what you're trying to do, and all the things you mentioned, and what the Colonel is talking about, especially with Republican administration here in Virginia? You know, we were on the road to progressive actions. Favoring what you're trying to do. Do you think any of what you're trying to do will be hindered or slowed down by, our administration that we have here now in Virginia?
I feel like this is ongoing. This has always been, the resistance has always been there in terms of doing this work. But I find, again, that the theater, using theater has a magical effect in terms of breaking down folks in terms of their being defensive about, this, and also folks who are angry and want, some, folks to take, responsibility, be accountable for, the past. And so what we can do with the theater is that we can bring folks together who are coming from radically different perspectives to be able to have, interaction. But action is really important. And I'll give an example of how I feel that Juneteenth is doing that. We have a young woman, Tatiana Cook, who was here in Virginia and worked with me for several years on Juneteenth. And she moved down to Brunswick, Georgia, where that is the case of Ahmaud Arbery. And she reached out to the Arbery family and, provided support, with the weekly prayer service and prayer conversation and things of that nature. And basically helped that family keep that videotape that was suppressed for about 3 months. Finally, kept them, supported enough so that they were able to get that video out there. And ultimately, that's what convicted those murderers.
Exactly.
And if not for, the work that Tatiana was doing in terms of the family, it could have very easily slipped through the cracks, as we talked about earlier with Fort Monroe needing to be that location where things don't slip through the cracks. But, she and her family were instrumental in that. And then finally it got national coverage, and then they had folks showing up, with, resources and the ability to be, keep that court as a trial was going on. There were people, in the courtyard there showing support. And that happened because of what this Juneteenth director was, doing in her part of the world there. And I think that can happen all over the country because there's injustice everywhere and history that needs to be exposed everywhere across this country. And if we can get, our organizations, I would love to see Juneteenth connected to every NAACP chapter and the Urban League chapters that are in that region. We need to link together so that we can be, stronger and able to make sure that we can, capture the incidents and things that we need to be able to follow through on. So in terms of the fight continues, we are, never naive, think that it's going to be over in our lifetimes, but look at all the things that we didn't think would happen in our lifetimes. We had a Barack Obama elected, and I'm sure there are other things here that we need to expose in terms of that. But I see a lot of hope in our in our youth because they don't have the same burdens that we have, and so they see the world in a way that is much more optimistic, I think, in terms of, not wanting to blame somebody for the situation, but wanting to be the, the leader and the innovator in terms of moving forward. So I'm really encouraged by that. And when they see this history, learn about this history, they're fascinated by it and they're interested in it. When they understand, and particularly again here in Hampton Roads where it all happened, we have the ability for our young people to be a part, to go actually put their hands on this primary information in these history. And you go out into Southampton County to see where Nat Turner lived, and also from Southampton County, Dred Scott actually spent time in Southampton County. It's so hard to say he lived there because he was enslaved, but we have all of this incredible, amazing history, and we have an opportunity to be able to put our hands in it and sift through the soil of it all, and we need to be doing that in a major way.
And Sheri, you're so right, because I took my youth group to Southampton County and we went along the Nat Turner Trail.
Yes.
And the kids had an opportunity to see cotton actually
Right.
growing, and they got off the bus and they were in the people's cotton field and they were pulling the cotton. I said, get back on this bus. I don't know whose field this is you're in,
Right.
but but you have to expose not only kids but adults to
Yes.
all of the history that we have here in Virginia. We went to Richmond to where the slaves were traded, to the area. We walked along the trail that they went along, so it's important that you know these things.
Right.
And once you know, then people can't tell you things that are not true.
Absolutely.
I know when I was in Ghana and and we went to the water with the chief, and the chief said he was going to give us a name change. And he says, this is the name you should have had before you left the motherland. He said, now, he gave us a drink of water. He says, now, this is water. Then he gave us a drink of wine. He said, this is wine. Always know the difference between wine and water. And as long as you know, no one can tell you anything that's not true.
Right. Right.
And you can speak up on truth. And so we need to expose our kids to history. Let them see it, let them feel it, let them touch it. And then we went under the Emancipation Oath and sat there where we read the Emancipation Proclamation. So these are things the schools are not given to the kids. So it's important for organizations to do it. And it'd be great if we could get those markers as to what took place and where it took place.
Right.
If the Eastern Shores can give us Harriet Tubman's trail,
right,
then surely we should be able to do something on South Side.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What happened here?
Even the white students need to be exposed to it.
They do.
In history. And as you talk about Nat Turner, and people want to bring up what he did, but look how many Indians George Custer killed, and both of them ended up the same way.
Yeah.
And they celebrate him as a hero. And,
yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Many Indian tribes and people. So, but it's history. They look at that as history. So it's history about Nat Turner, and his motivation for what he did was much different from what General Custer did.
Exactly.
All part of it. So we have to expose all those students and kind of ignore those guys up there on the top that are making those policy decisions, but make sure we educate the up and coming youth of all races about the American history, which Black history is part of.
I call it reframing history. History. We're not changing it, or we're not, leaving out anything. We're simply reframing the facts.
It's already there. It's already there.
It's already there. For over 150 years, the people who lost the Civil War have been controlling the narrative.
Exactly.
So of course they're going to make themselves look,
heroes. They're the heroes.
Like heroes, the lost cause, and everybody's supposed to feel sorry for them. I don't think so. We're talking about we won. If we're going to talk about who won, put a W in on our column for this, because ultimately, when we tell the truth, it will expose exactly what has happened. And again, I am sound like a broken record, but we here in Tidewater, Hampton Roads have an opportunity to be the leaders on this. We can create a blueprint in terms of how to deal with local history. Then we become a role model for the rest of the nation in terms of that. And that is, again, a responsibility, but as well as an opportunity to be able to do something significant, in terms of all of this. And so. This 25 years of Juneteenth VA feels like it has come at the right time, because it feels like people are ready for action in a profound way, in a real way. That there was kind of a lull that happened, in the 70s and 80s and so forth like that. And we've been through pandemics and all sorts of issues, but, this is the moment where we have, it should all come together. And so anyone who is out there listening, you personally have a responsibility and an opportunity. Everyone can do something. When I do the plays, when we do the auditions for the plays, I often encourage people who've never been on stage, to come and audition, because again, there's a role for everyone in the theater, from accountants to wardrobe. And so it's not necessary that you're going to be, a speaking role, but there's ample opportunity for that, as well as things that need to happen in terms of putting on productions. And our productions are our action works. This is how we do action through Juneteenth Virginia, is using theater. So everyone's welcome. If you ever thought that you might want to do it, come on down and do it.
And where do you operate out of, Sheri?
Right now, my home, and we are looking. We would love to get into the Colony Theater building that is located directly across the street from the Commodore Theater. It's a beautiful building, and it's got everything that we need in terms of being able to run the Portsmouth Theater Academy, as well as Juneteenth VA, as well as our low-powered FM radio station, WJVA. So that is our goal, is to get into that building, and that would be our home. Right now, this year, we've been very generously supported by the book club, which is located at 620 High Street. And it's a lovely Black-owned establishment where we held our planning meetings and our rehearsals and each special event. So you can find us down at the book club. Back in the fall, we'll be back there on Saturday mornings at 11 for our weekly planning committee meetings. So if you're interested in being a part of Juneteenth 2023, go to our website, and that information will be up there soon in terms of like what the fall schedule will be.
Now, were you involved?
Out, and I can be like the fiddler role that was in Roost, but
come on down.
Sheri, did you play a part in the planning for the Juneteenth celebration in downtown Portsmouth?
We were there planning the Saturday schedule. We kind of co-worked with the farmers market there, and on Sunday it was the Urban League who planned that day from their beginning to end. I think they were from 1 to 9, and we were had some issues with the city in terms of this year. There was a lot of confusion happening with the city manager's office and so forth like that. So we kind of got caught a little bit in the mix of all of that. But ultimately, we were still able to have Juneteenth celebrated, on that Saturday, June 18th, with the farmers market folks. Also, because we were at that location, which is right there, Court and High Street, which is where the Confederate Monument was.
Right.
That was the undercurrent of that being an issue that I was not able to completely, again, because there was so much confusion going on in the city manager's office and so forth like that. But I do believe that location being there, had something to do with some of the issues that we were dealing with.
Well, hopefully next year you'll be, regardless of who sponsors, if it's
right,
or if it's whoever, that you will play a big part of that, because you have been in this city for years promoting that, and with your plays and having everyday people we know in those plays. That's kind of exciting to go down there and see, oh, there's John, playing or something like that. So, or Frederick Douglass or somebody like that. What role did Frederick Douglass have in the June 19th as far as?
Frederick, yeah, he was major in terms of, the Juneteenth didn't happen until, after the Civil War. It really didn't happen immediately in 1865, 1866. It was an evolution in terms of that. But Frederick Douglass was, I liking him too. He was the Martin Luther King Jr. of his day. Juneteenth, according to Miss Opal, and I certainly agree with her about this, Juneteenth is not just that one day of June 19th. It literally is the June 19th through July 4th, because it is about understanding why June. The question you asked me at the top of the show, James, is like, why is it important to celebrate Juneteenth? Well, because it puts a highlight on this history in a way that is necessary. We need to understand again the evolution of what Juneteenth is all about and why it's important to look at this history. And it's not about just kind of drinking red Kool-Aid and eating tea cakes. It's really and that's all fine and good, but we also can never ever forget the history that goes along with that. I'll tell you, we were doing, Frederick Douglass, he wrote a powerful speech about why should enslaved people celebrate the 4th of July.
4th of July, yes.
And,
wonderful piece.
It's an excellent piece. And so that 2 weeks between June 19th, July 4th should be used for activities that again talk about the history and educate folks about exactly what the war against slavery really entails. And I have created a document that is based on the 1776 Declaration of Independence. I call the Juneteenth Declaration of Independence, where I welded together the original document with our concerns and needs of today. And, that document in 1776 was signed by 57 signers, of which over 40 of them were slaveholders. And so the Juneteenth Declaration of Independence, I want these 57, the first signer is going to be Miss Opal Lee. And then we're looking to invite folks of high moral character and action to be the other signers. And Ms. Opal has said that she wants the President Obama and Mrs. Obama to be signers. And, we are kind of creating that list of invites to those folks. And that doesn't mean that it's all famous rich people. It's going to be folks who we feel are doing the work of kind of ending the legacy of slavery and discrimination and injustice and doing that work. So we are in the process of getting that pulled together. And I hope that folks listening will again, support the efforts that we are making to do this work.
Colonel, I want you to get in there, but I want everybody to check out Miss Oprah Lee, and she has videos on YouTube, especially one particular. Just look her name up and pull that video. It's about an hour long, and she has a very interesting story. She's out there. She's one of the ones that said can't just celebrate in one day because there's too many educational components that
exactly.
Celebrated in one day. And she was willing in her senior years to walk from Texas to Washington, D.C. To bring attention to it.
Right.
A lot of people
a force of nature. Miss Opal Lee is a force of nature. Really is.
And invited her to different states and everything like that. So she definitely brought national attention to the Juneteenth. So check her out. It's an interesting story. And just to sit there and listen to her talk about her life growing up is an interesting story, what she went through. And then in her advanced age, she's still out there fighting for a cause that's worth fighting for.
And she was also good friends with Fannie Lou Hamer, and I always like that.
Love
folks
Fannie
to know
Lou.
that.
Exactly. I love Fannie Lou.
Exactly.
Powerful Black women.
Yes.
We don't do enough to celebrate our Black women either.
Exactly.
History.
Well, you know what? The struggle does continue, and you're talking about the struggle of us and and we celebrate Black women. Black women saved our country in the last election because we had the traitor in Mr. Trump was going to take 4 more years. And so Black women are the ones that stood up for that. But what I'd like to point out too is on this proclamation that y'all, that you're trying to get together, and I caution you to also vet on who you get to sign this, because it's a political thing that you'll have folks like our the the Confederate governor of Virginia will fluke down here and do this and try to sign as like he is that he believes in inclusion.
Right.
But if you look at his policies, he doesn't really believe in inclusion because every day he's installing federal all of his Confederate generals and lieutenants across the nations. And for example, like the director of public health, who says there are no disparities in racial disparities in healthcare.
Right.
And so we have to take a deep dive in those who profess to be inclusive and being on the right, trying to say I'm on the side of right. But their policies, if they're in power, their policies are the exact opposite
Right.
of what they espouse. And so I just had to put that out there too.
No, that's extremely important. We're going to take care and vet exactly and do exactly what your site's saying. So it's not automatic just because you're an appointed or elected official that you would be able to sign this document. It's way too important for it to be just charlatans, allowed to be up there.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it's also important that we have more control over the narrative because,
Yes.
things going to go commercial and it's going to be companies taking advantage of it. We already had the ice cream issue surrounding Juneteenth.
Right.
I can see down the road that they really coming in, with the red.
Oh yeah.
We've already see that, in our communities. So we have to make sure we control that to the point where Black advertising companies and take advantage of what's out there and not let the big white companies come in and
take over
as something that they can throw right back at us and take our dollars and put it back into our communities. So that's going to be important for us to be, and I'm sure all of you are aware of that happening. It might be kind of hard to control, but we can do our part as much as we can to make sure that we benefit from this holiday more than anybody else.
I would encourage folks to celebrate Juneteenth the way the 4th of July is celebrated. You have everything from municipalities celebrating to private, events. And, when I first started, it was June who, June what, and it was kind of lonely out here. And then, as, other Juneteenth organizations came aboard, I would get people saying, well, that's your thing, and no, that's our thing. Everyone is welcome to be, to celebrate and, to see over 30 something events celebrated around this region this Juneteenth season has been incredibly empowering and, and heartwarming because that is what it's supposed to be. I would direct folks to, we have a YouTube video called Nat Turner Kill My Family. And we were doing one of the plays out in Suffolk and suddenly and the play basically is called Abolitionist Museum and it features 8 figures from history and they are wax figures in a museum. The museum curator brings in a Confederate flag and they debate whether or not to burn the flag. And one of the historical figures is Nat Turner. So we're doing the play and suddenly from the audience, a voice shouts, Nat Turner killed my family.
Oh, wow.
And she was looking at the actor playing Nat Turner, if he indeed was Nat Turner. And this had all happened like a week ago. And said, ma'am, we're going to finish the story, finish the play, and then we're going to have that conversation. And we also had in the audience that day members of the Sons of the Confederacy who had heard about the play's plot and wanted to protect their, their flag. And so it was probably, guys, one of the best post-show conversations I've ever been involved in, where you have people coming from radically different perspectives, able to have a civilized conversation. And that's the work that we do. And so if you feel like, you want to, again, be a part of action, there's work to do in that way. And everyone, again, there's a role to be found for everyone.
And how do they find out about the plays, where they are, when they are, and all of those good things?
I would encourage you to go to our website, juneteenthva.org, and be and just kind of leave your contact information, and someone will get back to you in terms of letting you know that we've heard, we got your information. We're kind of in a slowdown for the summer at this point, but juneteenthva19@gmail.com is our email address. That again is juneteenthva, the number 19 at gmail.com.
Okay. And Sheri, I'm just so thankful for all that you do and all that you've been doing for so many years. And it just reminds me when I took the Sankofa youth to the slave haven in Memphis. And one of the things they had up on the wall was the old African adage, until the lion is able to tell its story, the hunter will always be the hero. So
Amen.
Therefore, we have to remember that we have to tell our story.
Absolutely.
And we have to not be ashamed of any part of our story. We have to take every aspect of it, get the best of every aspect of it, and bring it to where we can appreciate the rich history that we have, and not to shy away from it. So I'm so thankful to you for all that you've done. I'm thankful that you invited the Sankofa children to be a part of what you were doing in the early days, in the very early days. So we appreciate you so very much. And I just say thank you. Thank you so very much.
I appreciate that very much as well. It has been, I feel destiny. I left here running after high school, after Northam graduation, never to return. And never say never. It was destined for me to come back when I came back. And it has been my great joy to do this work. I feel that I've been given a purpose, and that and it's been a blessing from God in terms of being able to do this work, because it has opened my eyes to a world that I would have never known about. I mean, I was actually would think that it was the most boring place in the world growing up. I was just like, I got to get out of here. And so to know that I've been helping young people, kind of see the vision of what this place is, has been extremely gratifying. So thank you very much for your support as well.
And also, if you all could do between June 19th and July 4th, have the reenactors downtown walking the streets, telling the story for all who come here into Virginia, so they can know the story.
Yes, indeed. And yes, indeed. That is the goal. You must have been in our planning meeting there. That's exactly what needs to happen. So yeah, I'm looking forward to 2023. Making it all come together in a way that it deserves to be done. And I suspect that it's going to happen. The city is going to go through incredible changes in the next year with the casinos coming through, and this push for the CRT kind of, stuff. It's a lot going on. And if we can, again, just kind of link arms with the various groups, NAACP, Urban League, the sorority, the Divine Nine, all of the institutions that we have, in our community, we need to come together in terms of, again, this history does not see any borders between cities, towns, and counties. It simply happened here in Tidewater, Hampton Roads. And we have this incredible story to tell, and we can do it. But we have to be focused, and we have to understand that it is not about one getting more or anything.
Exactly. We got to move away from that.
It's all, we're linked together. If we link together, we are powerful, and we can do anything we want to do. And we can certainly reframe this history and tell the truth of what happened, as opposed to, fables and, lies. And we don't need that. And we don't need to deal in that level. We can rise above, as Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high.
We go high.
Let's do that. We can do it.
Sharon, you must have been bored after school because there's no way you could have been bored walking the halls of IC North.
Say it again, James. Say it again. Say it again, James.
And as a matter of fact, when you came back, when you did come back, you did serve a stint on the school board.
I did indeed. I
and
did indeed.
You are also a member of the Divine Nine.
Yes, I am. I'm a proud Delta.
Had to
Awesome.
mention to also historic significance in those sororities and fraternities. But we appreciate what you're doing. And anytime you want to come back on Portsmouth Coffee Talk and give updates on what you're doing in 2023 when things get rolling again, and you have all the different challenges and successes, we want you to come back to Portsmouth Coffee Talk and make sure
I appreciate that.
knowledge of the history out there in front of everybody. And Colonel, you have any last minute?
Yes. You know what? You made a comment about your destiny, and it struck me right away because Martin Luther King, in one of his speeches or talks, said our destiny is tied to the destiny of Americans. So what you're doing is highlighting our past, which is a roadmap to the future. And so if we don't know our past, then we tend to have a history of repeating the past.
Right.
From it. And so keep doing what you're doing and everything like that. And I know Slim right now is going to talk about doing, as we end the show, about our Thursday or our next show, and our next Thursday's show in the evening show. So, but if you hold, can you hear this?
Yes, we can hear you.
No. Can you hear? Do you hear the crickets?
Oh.
Well, I'd like to thank Mark Whitaker for coming on last week, but do you hear the crickets from DeAndre and Mr. Woodard and Paul Bible? Our phone lines are open.
My colonel.
Yeah. Stop hiding.
Well, of course, we welcome them if they want to come on and
Yes.
have anything to say to our audience and to the citizens of the city of Portsmouth. They're welcome to come on. And,
They always, but you hear the crickets.
And Sheri, in your playwright abilities, it'd be wonderful if you could write the story of Norcom, how it took place, all of the individuals who have been involved in
That
the
is a good
history of the
story.
school. There's a lot of history there, Sheri. So
You're absolutely right.
And we need to tell that story, and we need to do it in a place so people can see it.
Well, I've got a play called The Stars of Kaplan Manor, which you could use a companion piece, The Stars of IC Norcom, huh?
Waiting for it.
Fair enough. Yeah, let me get into the Portsmouth Theater Academy, and I'll have like a whole classroom full of writers and actors and so forth like that, because that's exactly what we're going to do. Is take this local history and put it on stage and dramatize it. And so that's at the top of the list there.
Thank you, darling. I appreciate
the Norcom story.
I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
And thank you once again for all that you do. We're so thankful you were able to get on because we were panicking there for a while. So
we cut it close, but we got it done.
We got it covered. So thank you so much, Sheri.
Awesome.
Thank you for all that you do.
This has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
everything happens for a reason. We needed that anticipation.
Indeed. All right, folks. Thank you so much.
Colonel hinted on it this Thursday at 7 p.m. We will, and he talked about the Supreme Court, the decision on women's rights and abortion rights. And we will have a young attorney on, one of our former guests, attorney Alana Glover. Thanks for the glove. I was going to say Grover.
I know, Alana Glover.
But she's coming back to talk about that, and it'd be good to get a young attorney's perspective on that. And as a matter of fact, she is an attorney in Maryland, but she passed the Virginia bar. So if you pass the Virginia bar, she's up to speed on the laws of Virginia. And we're going to see what's going to happen here in Virginia since the Supreme Court pretty much turned it over to the states to decide how they're going to go. So it's going to be interesting what happens here in Virginia. Exactly. So join us at 7 on Thursday for Portsmouth Coffee Talks Evening Edition. And again, we thank you. And Portsmouth Coffee Talk is here for our voice,
our community,
and our future.
and there's the Colonel's Cup.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so very much.
And everybody, take care.
Thank you for
And,
coming on Facebook Live. All of you who are on Facebook Live, we appreciate you.
And please share the ones that are here now, share so other people can see, and make sure that we show as much interest for our history as we do for the other controversial things. You know, when we have something controversial, the numbers go through the roof. But we need to have that kind of interest for important issues like we discussed today. So please share this video, and of course later on it's going to be on our YouTube channel, and you can also subscribe and like there as well, and share that with your with anybody you think that needs to know, get this information that we share. Thanks a lot again. We appreciate it. Thank you, host. I appreciate
Thank you, James.
All
Thank
right,
you, Kaplan.
thank you.
Thank you,
We'll see
Colonel.
you Thursday if I don't see you before then.
Okay, see you Thursday.
Yes.